we're helping bring humanity into this golden age that we all hope for, and a lot more sensing and sensuality and feeling and cooperation and love, like you
love.
said.
Yeah.
Love. Hello, welcome to Making Contact. This is a forum created by the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, meant to illuminate some answers about some fundamental questions regarding extraterrestrial civilizations, and of course, how we connect with them and how we can have diplomatic contact with them. In this particular forum, we'll be focusing on how we could make diplomatic contact with extraterrestrials and why do we want to do that. And we have two guests with us. Costa Macreas from ET Let's Talk, and Alan Steinsfeld, an author, producer, and speaker in many fields. We'll do proper introductions in a minute. First, what I want to talk about is the whole concept of the Alliance proper. The Alliance is set up to facilitate and also create projects that allow diplomatic contact with extraterrestrials. And our main project is the Extraterrestrial Embassy, for which we have funds, and we're looking for a country that will host it and give the embassy extraterritorial status at also the United Nations, so that we can, together, humanity, agree that we want to welcome other advanced civilizations that are probably watching us. And apparently we'll get into that in a minute. As for myself, I'm a futurist, an entrepreneur, and I'm the vice president of the Alliance. I've been working on futurism and technology for over 20 years with the goal of seeing humanity entering a golden age of understanding. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, chemical engineering, and education. I'm also a director at the Canadian Institute of Mass Communication and also a director at Psychometrics. I'm a delegate of the World Future Society and the author of the book, Engineering Paradise. Are you ready? So I'd like to get us started with this. We'll set up this forum in two sections, just so you guys know who are listening. First, we'll each do a little bit of a presentation about our thoughts about how and why should we have a diplomatic contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations, each at a time, and I'll introduce more fully our two guests. And then this will be followed by questions that have been submitted to us, and we'll have a discussion, a forum discussion, for probably going a little bit over an hour in total. So this should be very enjoyable. So I would like to start just by introducing Costa here, Costa Macreas. He went on to earn his bachelor's degree in Indiana in computer science when he was a young man back then. And as such a young man, he became fascinated with the mysteries of the universe, teaching himself astrology, meditation, astronomy, and reading widely about the extraterrestrial UFOs, comparative religion, spirituality, Atlantis, and many other metaphysics topics. Costa has enjoyed a broad and successful career as a software consultant to many Silicon Valley companies. He is the founder of ET Let's Talk, a network of 100,000 peaceful groups and individuals from 100 countries and more, who meet up at CE5 teams once a month to make coordinated, interactive, and united contact with loving, peaceful ET civilizations. Welcome, Costa, to the forum, Making Contact. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for that nice introduction there, Sylvain.
You're welcome. Now, to answer the question, because we're all here for that one question, how should we reach out to these extraterrestrial civilizations to make contact, actual diplomatic contact, and why is that important?
The short answer is because it's our future as we're becoming cosmic humanity. And our groups have been answering that question with an affirmative yes ever since the People's Disclosure Movement, which I founded in 2010, began. And as you mentioned before, those monthly meetings where our global teams virtually connect with each other to not only form a human network, but to reach out as a united group to the stars. That has been our answer, which is that resounding yes, we're doing it. And our intention is to form bilateral communications with them, because we have learned along the way that they want to talk with us too, as well as to mentor us, because they see a great opportunity for our species right now at a very critical time on Earth, where we could destroy ourselves or we could leap into a golden age. So they see that opportunity that we have and want to help us achieve. They want to help us survive and thrive into a golden age. So that's what's guiding our community, is that goal of the fact that we can positively transform the Earth from what it is now to a paradise in time, as a process, not overnight, but that we're on the road and we have cosmic help to do that. So that's why we have that resounding yes. We need to have our some help from our cosmic brethren and sistren. I don't even know if that's a word, but from our cosmic family, actually, is what they call us. And at the same time, learning how to get along in what I call the People's Love Alliance with each other, and to solve the problems that we humans must solve without turning them over to somebody else, because it's our evolution and our growth. So that's the short answer of what I see the future that we're headed towards. And in my cautious optimism, it's a positive future, and it's an integrated, co-creative process with our cosmic friends as part of the People's Disclosure Movement and the People's Love Alliance with our human brethren and sistren. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope that was that got to the core of what you were asking there.
Yeah, thank you, Costa, for sharing. Yeah, and now I'd like to hear from you, Alan, but let me properly introduce you. Alan Steinfeld is a writer, producer, and speaker in the fields of human potential, metaphysics, conscious evolution, healing, creativity, spiritual awakening, and cosmic intelligences. He informs millions through his website, lectures, YouTube videos, and weekly television program. He's also the host and director of the primetime television program, New Realities, for Time Warner Cable in New York City. For over 20 years, he has brought cutting-edge ideas in science, health, and spirituality to his audiences. He has interviewed over 3,000 of the most influential people in the world. He also produces the New Realities radio shows and podcasts each week for iTunes, BBS Radio, and KYAK FM in Oregon. Well, the question is, why should we have diplomatic contact with extraterrestrial civilizations?
Right.
And how should we go about it?
Right. Well, I love everything Costa's saying and everything you're doing, Sylvain. What's coming is an internal movement among humanity. It's like we could set up diplomatic relations and be the same old warlike humanity. They're not, no one's showing up to the party for that. You know, we have to change, and this is what Costa's doing with the CEs, with, you know, going out there and calling these beings, because he changes the vibrational field. So the embassy is really one, in a kind of metaphysical sense, the one we create within ourselves. You know, the place we create for contact to be made. We're making contact with ourselves. I mean, thank you for calling this little conference Making Contact, which is why I called the book Making Contact, because we're making contact. Yes, the hope is to make contact with others, but it starts by making contact with ourselves, with each other, with the planet, with the greater possibilities of who we are. The old humanity will never make contact, or if it will, it will act in a very old paradigm way. So working on oneself, you know, how do we drop in to the part of us that is in a sense extraterrestrial? You know, we're not just humans here. You know, we have these animal bodies, but what's inhabiting the animal body, I think, is an extraterrestrial awareness. It's not local to the evolving primates that came up through the evolutionary cycle. I think there was an upgrade in the system. And this is why we are different than all the other animals on the planet. You know, we make houses and write books and make art. And most animals, and these are animal bodies we're in, don't really care about those things. Their thing is the 4 F's, you know, which is in the survival, you know, fighting, feeding, fleeing, and having sex. That's the 4th F. But, you know, humans do all those things, but we do more than that. We look to the stars and wonder. You know, for me, when I go out on a clear night, when I'm out of the city, when I'm like in Sedona, and there's just this canopy of light out there, that's not foreign to me. It's like I feel connected. I know part of my home is among those lights out there in the sky. It's like, hello, you feel like waving, we're here. It's like, so making contact is a natural phenomena of who we are as human beings, because it's sort of like we're homesick in a sense for other worlds. Even though this is a beautiful planet, don't ever forget we are living in paradise. It's a very functional planet. We have to clean it up. That's another aspect of making contact. You know, so if we can open up our hearts and minds and possibilities to these other beings, then the embassy that we really want to create comes from within to without. And if we put that same vibration into a building, or energetically, if it's created with that, it's like those statues of Buddha that with a smiling face. You cannot create that statue unless you're in that place of projecting that onto that statue. If you're an angry, you know, sort of mean person, you can't create that beatific presence of the Buddha consciousness in a statue, because it doesn't communicate. That's the same thing I'm saying about any embassy, any doorway to a making contact sort of relationship. It's making contact starts, it's an inside job. So it's, you know, it's all of us as a planetary civilization. We are a planetary civilization, no matter what race, what country, what religion, what nationality, whatever. Those are the things, that's like a piece of clothing you put on top of the body. We are human beings, and we are all connected in the human consciousness field. And when we come into a cohesion, like a coherent unity, that as a oneness of consciousness, that's the first step in meeting the others in their oneness of consciousness. So creating an embassy or a space in which that can happen will not only bring those other beings in a lot more conscious and visible manner to our doorstep, it'll help heal our planet, which is what we need to do. If we're going to make contact, they're not coming to help us clean up we made a mess here in this beautiful paradise. We have to clean. It's like your mother saying, you're not going to have company unless you clean up your room. That's us. We have to clean up our room if we really want to have company. That's true. I just came up with that, but it's like that. It's like, you know, so embassies are great. The idea of embassies are great, but the idea of a coherent humanity is the foundation. And then I totally support it. I mean, they are reaching out to us like crop circles. Yes, they're trying to communicate appearances, what Costa's doing. I mean, these are steps towards the meeting, but the great meeting has to happen in the consciousness of humanity. Mm-hmm. And when we have that alignment in ourselves, and we're going through the dark night of the soul now, you know, we're going through it now. In the last 2 years haven't been a picnic. We have to really settle down, go through the dark night of the soul, go through that, the shadow, the stuff we've created a mess out of, and come to this place where, oh, right, we're ready to meet the others on an even playing field. And that's the paradise I think we can hope to achieve. It's really a greater achievement of human awareness. I'm very excited about the possibilities of all of us coming together. I appreciate you guys and everything you're standing for, and the effort and this alignment that we have with so many other people on the planet to make it hospitable, to make it welcome, to clean up our act, all of us personally, nationally, globally, and then we could sit back and, put together the hors d'oeuvres, or when they come, they'll have something to eat. So that's
Yes,
my,
food
that's
is
my
good.
feeling here, Sylvain. I appreciate your effort to put this together.
Well, thank you so much, Alan,
Yeah.
for your input. That's I think I reflect your thoughts on this, and I'd like to extend by personally answering the question on behalf of the Alliance for Extraterrestrials and our supporters. We have 8 organizations that are supporting, and over 305,000 supporters right now. And the main project, like you mentioned, the embassy, right? The main project is an actual physical embassy with extraterrestrial presence in a country, and also the work of the UN, and like you said, Alan, this is a project that is challenging because you're tackling some issues with governance and people, right? Especially politicians or diplomats. They don't want to be associated with something that sounds kooky. But it really is, there's a growing sentiment, I would say, on the planet that it's not so crazy after all. And there's a growing sentiment. I think it's nearly 80% of North Americans, at least from surveys, that do think there is an intelligent life out there. At the very least, they're open to that idea. Then they may not be ready for a natural encounter, but they believe, oh, it's out there. And if it's out there, definitely it's possible that there's a visitation or communication, right? So why should we have an ET contact or with an advanced civilization? What would be the reason? I often think about this, and I think a lot of people, when they think about this, they think about, well, what would be the benefit? They think about what's good for me, essentially, into this. And that's a knee-jerk reaction that is very human. I can't deny that. Like, I understand it. But I think it's the wrong question. Like, we have to change our mindset, I think, fundamentally. I mean, of course, there is a huge benefits, yes. Like, if an advanced civilization that crosses the stars has the technology to do so without destroying themselves in the process, and they can cross the stars, and they come and say, hey, like, here we are, right? I mean, they are at a level of understanding of the universe, a level of understanding of social advances that we are not even close to yet, right? Even though we can progress very quickly. So that's definitely a big plus. Yes, we can gather some of the wisdom that they have garnered that we don't yet have. And that can be only a benefit to us. We can learn from them. That's true. So if we want to think about, what's in it for us, well, that's a big thing. Yes, but like I said, I think it's the wrong question. I think the question would be, what is in the universe? Like, what benefit is it for us to join the broader community in a formal way, in a more direct way? Because we have to think broader. It's a little bit like when you look at nations, and as a nation, we can look at other nations like, oh, I want to do trade. What's in it for me? That also a typical reaction from humanity. What's in it for me? And if I don't get any benefit from it, well, I don't want to do the deal. And we know for a fact that that's a wrong attitude even among ourselves. Because it's always about what's the win-win. There's something greater when you start trading and associating, and then you have the cultural exchanges, and you have the conversation, the language exchanges, the wisdom exchange that they have with another nation. That goes way beyond what's in it for me. How much money or how much resources can I get from this deal? It becomes a cooperation versus what can I take, right? So it's really a mental difference. So we have to think, yeah, there's a lot of benefits, but we're going to penetrate their culture too, whichever civilization, and we're going to be collaborating, just like we're collaborating. And how much richness will we get from it, but how much richer they'll get from interacting with us primitives. There's going to be, it goes to both ways. The idea of the ET embassy itself, like to Alan's point, and also Costa, you mentioned this, it's the physical embassy is really for us. We're building it, we're setting it up, we're working with, we're getting the messaging into United Nations. This whole effort is partly a way to get the whole concept of direct contact, official contact with ET civilizations popular, like mainstream, at least like closer to mainstream, as something that is desirable by a majority of the population, something that is not scary, something that is positive. Because if they are scaredy cat leaders that don't want to touch something odd, agree that let's discuss this and let's seriously consider this as a possibility, then you put a lot of media, a lot of discussions in the limelight, where normal people that are not as enthusiastic as we are around this topic engaged into the conversation and into normal like coffee house conversations or at work. So I see that as a process of enlightenment and broadening of horizons, of accepting, like if we're okay welcoming extraterrestrial life, automatically I think people will also be okay welcoming a person from another nation inside the earth. I mean, it goes together. It's the same thing. It's welcoming the strange, the unknown, not being fearful of it, and kind of saying, okay, I welcome this event, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to make the best of it, and it's going to be good for us all. It's going to expand my mind, and that's kind of a mindset change, really, we're doing. Advanced civilization that can cross the stars, the span between stars, don't need an actual building to meet us. I mean, we have satellites in orbit, the communication satellites, and we don't need to be in the satellite to communicate with somebody. No, we use devices. Nobody sees the satellites, and you communicate with across the stars. They don't need to land to communicate with us. They don't need to. And Costa would probably say, because you do a lot of CE5 and contact exercise, and we'll get to that probably in a few minutes. There are ways using our biological brains to communicate with each other, but also to communicate with extraterrestrial civilization that either use their organic brains or use computers like satellites to perceive our wavelengths, whatever, right? You can do that from orbit, from possibly even their home solar system, for all we know. So it's really about, just like you guys said, it's really about us, and that's the fundamental reason why we want to make official contact. It's to develop us as a civilization, to move us beyond where we are now in this confrontational, kind of semi-aggressive stance where we're afraid of each other, to an expanded mind where we're accepting each other and others, and going beyond the petty squabbles, and moving into a more collaborative space. So to answer very quickly the other question that's embedded in the forum, like forum question, the how. Well, telepathic contact is a way. That's what CE5 does. It's attempts to send out waves and getting a response, or getting some kind of a reaction, and so it's a form of communication. And why not, ET phone home, like to pick up the Spielberg, like maybe we can use a device at some point as like, and there'd be an answer, right? So, I mean, there's all sorts of ways. And of course, the embassy proper, for us, at least for our leaders, having a physical place where they can go, they can understand this. An embassy is an understood concept. They can go there, and somebody comes down, has a meeting in a room that's filmed, that's a concept that is reachable, that they understand. It's because it's not telepathy, it's not weird, like things that they don't really understand. I'm assuming a extraterrestrial civilization that wants to make this formal contact would oblige our leaders and do kind of a formal thing. And hence the embassy, a physical embassy, may get some use to kind of bridge that gap, perhaps, of understanding and moving towards. That's my understanding of things. So I'd like to move on to the next segment. All right, with you guys, which is just questions, and some questions were submitted. And I would like to start with this one here, which is, why would extraterrestrials want relations with us? And I'm sure the question is not talking about sex. I think it's more about, because that could be construed that way. I think like having a relationship, like of some kind. So, Costa, what are your thoughts about this?
Oh, definitely. I have some thoughts, and they come from actual experience that we've had having that answered for us. Back in the beginning, when the People's Disclosure Movement, when I founded it and started it in 2010, I learned right away while communicating, and yes, we have communication with the Star People. They told us right off the bat, don't think of us as gods. Don't do that. How well do humans do with religion and keeping the peace? This is not anti-religion, but I'm just saying that it's been a source of conflict on Earth for way too long. So immediately they said, don't go into that paradigm, that mindset. Instead, they said, think of us as your elder brothers, sisters, and cousins. We are family. Now, you can take that in the very literal sense, as some philosophies here on Earth do, and understand that their races may have come here in the dawn of our history and seeded us, messed with our DNA, and upgraded us, et cetera, et cetera. That's not anything I'm going to delve into right now, because certainly that's possible, and in my mind, probably highly probable. So, in the very literal sense, they may be family. But if people can't accept that, we'll think of it in a metaphorical way. So they made that declaration to us right offhand. And I understood then that this is a friendly invitation. It doesn't answer all the questions like, why us? What have we got to offer? We might be like primitive monkeys to an advanced civilization like you. But here's where things change. They come, the ones we've contacted with, and I believe they are there in the majority, they come with love, with compassion, because they've achieved, I believe, in their own cultures, in their own minds, in their own development, a state of awareness that they are part of the wholeness of creation, the whole of creation, that we are all one. Why would they not then, out of compassion, look at species that maybe haven't come quite as far along as they have yet and want to help? So that's the family part. It's like if you see a younger sibling, or maybe let's say you've discovered a cousin in another country that you never knew existed, but suddenly they show up in your newsfeed or something, and you go, oh my God, there they are. I want to have a relationship. I want to have contact. I want to learn about them, and I want to help them. They may be coming to me with questions about, how do I do this? How do I do that? I have challenges. Have you been down this road before? Can you help me? And in that sense, they want to help. And that's why they want to relate with us. And again, it's out of compassion. And that's the only way that I would want that. If their motives were deeper and darker and as self-serving as some of human motives are for why we invade other countries or visit other countries, then I don't know anybody that really would want a part of that. But so far, for all the years that our teams have been making contact, and we've had thousands of encounters with photos, with videos, communication in all different ways, not just lights in the sky. Throughout all of that, most of what has been reported has been of a positive, affirmative, or at worst, just a neutral nature. And that's something we can kind of take to the bank there. And the fact that we now have these cosmic civilizations flitting about, coming in and out of our dimensionality or whatever they're doing with us, all of the above, we have them here. And the question is, what do we want to do with that? And I like what Alan had said, which is it's incumbent upon us to develop ourselves, because if we're ready to slay some other human being because their skin is different color, or they believe slightly differently than what we do, or they pray differently, if we're ready to do that to another human being, why would we be attractive to another culture that that might and probably does look different and have different thoughts? So we've got to do that development. I just want to echo what you and Alan have been saying, that this is really an inner movement. That's the People's Love Alliance that I see going on all over the planet, where human beings are actually taking on this expanded cosmic growth and learning to get along with each other and starting to take care of our planet and each other in a far, far better way than we have ever done before. And it's really important that that People's Love Alliance succeed, because if you look at the mainstream news in many countries, what you will see are the shadow, the downside of what humanity has been doing. And of course, if that's all you see and that's where all you get your news from, colors your world, then it's easy to believe or to ask the question, why would these other civilizations want to engage with that? But what they see is the hope, the seed inside of us that is capable of incredible growth and consciousness. And they're here, I think, maybe they seeded it, but they're here to nurture that as elder family members to help that grow, because they do realize that once you look past the mainstream news and you know where to look in the rest of the web world, there are millions of examples of human beings who are rising up in their localities, in their regions, in their countries to do little and large positive things that are making life better. And in their aggregate, millions of people doing kind thoughts or kind acts towards each other, whether they're little or they're large, really has an effect in its aggregate. It's setting a whole new course for humanity to follow. And that's the People's Love Alliance. Again, the media may not reflect that, but if people come to, and pardon me for doing the shameless commercial here, but come to etletstalk.com, we can direct those of you who want to look where this good news of humans behaving well really is arising. And it's arising by the millions. You just have no idea that it's not just yourself and 10 of your friends who give a damn about what's going on and are actually doing anything. It's literally hundreds of millions of people, but we don't know about each other, not yet. And that's why we're having programs like this. That's why we have an embassy that's being built and thought about, so that we can come together, compare notes and go, oh my God, I didn't know that you were doing this and that. Let's get together and cooperate. Let's make it better. We're bringing together all the positive upshoots of grass that are coming up in the barren field. And that's what the People's Love Alliance is about. And that's what gives me hope. And again, that's what I think is the promise that our cosmic family sees in us. And they have said they want to mentor and help. And to Alan's point again, we've got to do the growth, but why wouldn't they extend a helping hand or an idea or some guidance if we ask out of our free will? Hey, I've hit a wall. We don't know how to solve this. Have you got any suggestions? Maybe you've gone down this road in your civilization. I know that this is what they want. They want to mentor in this way and contribute while we do the work and the lifting and achieve the reward of someday having a paradise where we actually do get along with each other and have solved a lot of problems on Earth and are happier.
So it seems to me like from what you're telling me here, telling us here, is that they're kind of acting like a big brother, like to a teenage brother that we're just trying to learn who we are and and making mistakes.
What is the Cosmic Love Alliance? I missed some of that. How do we get into that? How do we join it? How do we become part of it?
just by doing your good works, whatever they are in your environment. It's called the People's Love Alliance, and it's the earth-based part of a two movements that I see. The People's Disclosure Movement is us reaching out through all our different activities, whether it's an embassy or whether it's my teams by the thousands reaching out and making connection. There's that, the cosmic connection, humans to the cosmic, that's important. But the other side of that coin is the People's Love Alliance, which is human to human, which is what you were talking about earlier, Alan, which is our growth. We've got to learn to get along with each other, and that's all about achieving right human relations so that we evolve and, number one, not destroy our planet, but two, give ourselves a chance to let love and compassion guide us rather than competition and warfare and separativism and all the things that have unfortunately characterized too much of humanity up to this point. So the Love Alliance is all those people. We've been told there's 1 billion people, this is by my star friends have said this, 1 billion people on the planet today whose heart has opened just enough, if not more. I'm not saying everyone's just at the beginning stage, but just enough that they can contemplate the other and being a little more selfless rather than selfish. And if there's a 1 billion, 1 out of 7 alive on the planet today who have opened their hearts even a little bit like that, that's the People's Love Alliance, because that's when the best of what's within us, our higher selves, call it what you will, are starting to express themselves in the world. So whether you're running a project that's bringing water to a drought-stricken village in Africa somewhere, or whether you are a spiritual leader who has turned on millions of people to love and kindness and everything in between, you're part of that People's Love Alliance, the growth of us as human beings. And this is what I just want to let people know. It's going on, it's happening, and we can tell you where to look to see all that activity.
But could we coordinate a time with everyone watching this where we can all tune in? I mean, that's been done before, of course, but could we do that as an outgrowth of this dialogue here, like decide what time, like maybe a minute or 5 minutes of people around the world to come together, and because our consciousness is all connected, could we should we do that? Is that something?
Well, people already have. Ben might be able to speak to that. I mean, you've seen, if you're on social media at all, someone's holding a mass meditation at this time. I mean, they're all over the place. So people are doing that in spots all over the planet, and everyone announces we'll have 1 billion people. Who knows how many actually show up? But what's important is that a lot of different groups are onto this. And yes, Alan, they're already doing this. So if you want to be part of doing yet another one, the more the merrier. We need more of these. Yeah,
definitely. No, I think that's important because when I just did something with Lynn McTaggart, who does her intention experiment, and we were sending, it was on 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11, and we just dropped in and sent healing out. And I felt when everyone present on that call dropped into a oneness of mind. I mean, these are the higher senses that we are developing as a human race in order to meet the other. It's not just in this language, English or whatever, it's in a feeling awareness that we are really making contact. So I'm just wanting
I love the fact you came up with that, and you have interviewed many of these kinds of change makers like Lynn. They're doing and have been doing wonderful work. And the more of us that come together, the better. I mean, it doesn't mean that there has to be one central organization that's running a show. No, this is a very decentralized network of networks within networks within networks. We just need to become more aware of what we're doing. And you, Alan, as a communicator who brings these change makers in, allows them to promote what they're doing, and that educates the public. So people go, oh my God, I didn't know that was going on. I want to join in. Or I feel better today because I just learned about this wonderful new solution to some problem that has been concerning me that someone is doing something about.
I get that. And Thank you. I think, though, a moment in time that's dedicated to making contact worldwide, maybe I'll think about when that will be, and I'll put it out to all our networks and be like 5 minutes around the world. And I think there's been meditations for peace and love and anti-war, and that's all great. But a meditation for reaching out, and I don't know if that's been done. Maybe it has, but
No, there have been attempts. In fact, I mean, but we do that every month.
Oh, you do?
In our global CE5. And CE5, again, is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where that's, for people who out there don't understand this yet or don't know the definition, those are human-initiated, interactive connection and communication with these cosmic civilizations. So it's not passive like Close Encounters 1 through 4 are. This is like proactive, humans going, here we are, we're ready, we're peaceful, we have good intentions, let's talk. And that's what I guess ET Let's Talk is about. Thank you to my wife Hollis for coming up with that.
When do you do this every month? What time and day? And
it varies. It's on a Saturday. It's a 24-hour period. And for the last 10 years, we've been doing this. And I publish the dates like a year ahead of time because I want to choose, and this is why it fluctuates a little bit. I want to choose a Saturday during every month where the new moon has the darkest sky, because a lot of groups go out in the field and they're able to see more of the sky and connect that way. That's not the only way to connect, of course, the visual part. But I do publish those dates, and people can get on the mailing list. Again, another shameless commercial. Come to etletstalk.com. Just register there. It's free. And for every month during that 24-hour period, Alan, I just ask people, I give them a little format to join in their hearts and their minds virtually with the network, to visualize themselves as lights in every country hooking up in the network, and then to send beams of invitation and love skyward so that you see the earth spiking with these beams, and then visualizing our cosmic families, obviously being aware of those, connecting with us, and then creating a unified field that has been building for these years. I want to tell you something. My cosmic friends have said that because of our united activity during these last 10 years of doing this month after month and growing this movement to where the People's Disclosure Movement now has 1 million or more people in more than 100 countries. Because we've been doing this, my star friends now say that our CE5, our Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind movement, our People's Disclosure Movement, has reached a tipping point that they predicted to me 10 years ago would happen. They just didn't tell me when, because they didn't know how fast humans would want to start making this contact. But they told me that in 2019, just 2 years ago, the tipping point was reached where so many of us have now seen them all over the world, in all countries, and want to communicate. And they've been showing up as more of us see them, there have been more sightings, which means more of us see them, which means more sightings. They told me in the beginning this was a virtuous circle. And the point was to reach a tipping point someday, again, where so many people had encountered them that no government could ever again cover up their presence. And that's why I say in the People's Disclosure Movement, the governments and the institutions that have been telling us we're crazy, making us wrong, ruining our careers, institutionalizing us, they own the past, because the last 70 years has been all about that cover up. And the world's worst held secret, by the way, because it didn't completely work. But now moving forward, they say with this tipping point that we reached in 2019, the future belongs to us. The People's Disclosure Movement is a snowball. They gave me this picture, a snowball rolling downhill. You know what happens with those? They get bigger and bigger. It can't be stopped now. It cannot be stopped. And that's why the People's Disclosure Movement owns the future. The governments may never hold that press conference that people are looking for. Tell us what we already know. Hold that press conference, Mr. Premier, Ms. Prime Minister, whatever. Maybe that'll happen. That's great. But we haven't been waiting in the People's Disclosure Movement for that to happen. And that's why we've been working for 10 years to get to this tipping point where now, the truth is 1.3 billion adults globally According to recent research that was done in 2016, 1.3 billion adults, 1 out of 7 or 8 alive on the planet, now believe that alien or they like to be called star people, by the way. Star people civilizations do exist, not just a microbe under a rock somewhere, but full-on intelligent life does exist, and that we should communicate with it. So right there is the sweet spot of what we've been doing for 10 years and what the People's Disclosure Movement has been about. We've now got 1.3 billion people that in theory are with us. It doesn't mean all of them are pulling out their lawn chairs or sitting in meditation circles and actually making the contact, but the seeds have been planted. The minds are open, and that's where we're working. We don't need to convince anybody with yet another photograph or another cool video. Please believe, please believe. I mean, that's great, but we're working with those 1.3 billion in our movement, and every month, as many as we can reach, who are already the low-hanging fruit, if I can use a metaphor like that, who are already with us. It's preaching to a choir that's there who just doesn't know about us yet. And again, Alan and Sylvain, what you guys are doing as you're reaching out with your networks is the same thing I'm doing. We're educating more and more of humanity. Like, you guys never knew how many of us there are who are ready. Yeah, we're a minority, but we're a really large minority, and we've reached that tipping point. There's no stopping this now. Someday full open contact will happen on the earth. And
it's opening people's minds. What you're doing.
That's it.
Open mindedness or change views there. Did I drop out for a second there?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, sorry. So I just want to add to that for a second, because and you talked about the kept secrets and the secrets, these secrets from government, which they haven't been able to keep, but just enough to make people doubt that we're part of a greater cosmos, have been in place. They've enslaved us to a way of thinking about ourselves as small, limited, a freak of nature. Life is an accident. It's, it's like that mentality separates us from the greater life that's out there. If we think, oh, life on Earth and we're the most intelligent beings in the cosmos and we're the top of the food chain, it works for the suppression of these other truths. So in my book there, I write, and I was saving this quote. I saw it about 20 years ago. I had it on my wall. I didn't know where I would put it, but it just struck me as so deep. And it was written by an abolitionist in 1844, where the fight for freedom and against enslavement, it came out of that public protest about, but we've been enslaved too, not in the same way, but we've been enslaved to a false reality, a false truth. And as we wake up to know that we're part of this incredible cosmology of intelligence and life and possibilities and explorations and technologies and biologies, we awaken to a greater format. So I just want to read this introduction, and then it's all yours, Sylvain. But I just want to say, but in 1844, this abolitionist wrote, "There are seasons in human affairs of inward and outward revolution, when new depths seem to be broken up in the soul, and when new wants are enfolded in multitudes. And is a time when new and undefined good is thirsted for. There are periods when the principles of experience need to be modified, and when hope and trust and instinct claim a share in the guidance of human affairs, and when in truth, to dare is the highest wisdom." William Ellery Jennings, 1844. We are now at that same moment of fighting, maybe not, but standing up for truth and freedom of thought and freedom to meet other beings when we free our minds. Because, psychology has helped us a lot. It made us look at ourselves, but it's also made us distrust these own inner inklings of intuition. You know, if you hear voices, if you have a vision, well, maybe you're crazy. That is an old paradigm. If you have a vision, you're a visionary. If you hear other levels, for the most part, there are some crazy people out there, but for the most part, we are tapping into the higher realms, and we have to trust this inner workings of the being if we're really going to start making contact. That's making contact with the source that we are, the higher self. So I say trust your intuition, trust the new humanity that's rising, and go out, look at the sky, do that CE5, and let's start an embassy where we can meet beings from all places in the cosmos, and evolve our technology, our understanding of biology, cosmology, our true history. This is what's so exciting about what you're proposing, Sylvan. So thanks.
Well, I mean, this is an old project where the Alliance proper is just an alliance of different organizations, right? And one of the organizations is the International Aurelian Movement, who has been working towards that embassy idea since 1974. And the other members have also great projects that are leading towards, like, you know, Costa's project, for example, leaning towards direct contact from individuals. No embassies needed, with extraterrestrial civilization through telepathy and other experiences. And I, you know, to your point, Costa, a bit earlier, like, I think we've spoken about this in our previous conversation. There's a multitudes of different ways that people want to interact with this space of mind, this type of ideology. I'm of a scientific kind of point of view. I'm not an experiencer. I've never seen a UFO, so it's a much more rational, scientific approach. Others have a much more personal feeling about this, and so they're more attracted to different organizations, different initiatives, but we're all moving in the same direction, the direction of love, harmony, unicity, cooperation, broadening of horizons. And there's a pie that's going to sate just about any kind of taste, right, from just about anybody. But we all want to discover each other so that we know there's a multitude of organizations out that are pushing in the same direction, and we want to know each other. And we want everybody to know that how numerous we are, because it is still considered edgy. An edgy topic. It's getting much better over the last couple of years because of the UFO disclosure in the States and other events. But also, you mentioned there's a lot more people on their own connecting with each other through the internet and other means, saying, "Hey, I think the same way. I agree with you." And this propagation of ideas. So so it's extremely exciting and positive. And there's a lot of people out there as we build the alliance and kind of connect the dots and get to know with different organizations. There's huge amounts of individuals, and your networks are proof of the amounts of people that are of the same mind, that want the same thing. Now, I want to pose Alan a question here, because you were going into the how humanity has to change in their minds, right? Like the mindset change, and how we view reality. And so could you tell us a bit more about how do you see this? How can humanity kind of change the way it sees things so that we can make contact as a civilization?
Well, that's a great question, because I've done a proposal about this in a talk I gave for Contact in the Desert, actually. And I don't know for sure. I like people who come out and say, I know. These are the ones we have to stay away from. Oh, I know this is how we do it. And that, I'm not saying this is for everyone. It's just what I suspect, as I, is so steeped in the literature. I'm listening to what people like Luis Elizondo is saying as he comes out, really as the front person for the disclosure movement. Not that we need, I'm sure Costa agrees, we don't need the government to tell us what's real, but they do kind of like, it's like the church in the time of Galileo. They are the purveyors of the accepted reality. So if your government says it's true, well, then it must be true or not be true. It's like, that's sort of the situation we've been in now for the last 2 years, but we won't get into that. So I think if you listen to what Alessandra is saying, what I've been put together as a result of writing this book. So I wrote this book, and my chapter in there is about my experience. But in there's also a chapter by John Mack, who was a Harvard psychiatrist, and he looked at people having contact, and he said, you know what? These people are not crazy. They don't have any pathological disorder. They are having a real experience for them. And he says, and I quote him in the book, in order to understand this phenomena, we need other ways of knowing. That means and he says that we have to get out of this linear, mechanistic, westernized worldview, which is really, and that's my addition, only left brain. It has to be rational in the way we've learned rationality. So this phenomena doesn't fit into linear reality. There could be things here and there, and it's like changing shape. It doesn't fit the physics that, I have to tell you, is 400 years old. Isaac Newton, second law of thermodynamics, is what's still running our cars and planes, energy out, energy forward, So we're using science, and everything else has evolved, humans, but we're using a science, and nothing wrong with Newton. He was a genius for his time, but we have yet to institute real quantum physics into our technology. Yes, we have quantum computers, or the beginning of that. And the thing and so I'm getting to the understanding of, we have to embrace a quantum world. We have to embrace quantum understanding, and the quantum understanding of how these beings are coming. This is, I think, answer to your question, is a totally different paradigm than linear thought, linear rational thought. In quantum physics, there's ideas of entanglement. So if we're talking here, and everyone watching, we are entangled with each other after this conference, after this thing. So you're entangled with your families. There's an entanglement of consciousness that happens. The other concept is superposition, that there are no concrete results. Collapsing the wave function means, oh, I know what it is. It's like, what it is, that's linear mind. But in the quantum world, there are no final results. Everything is always moving and changing into something else. So if you're rolling a pair of dice, I think I came up with this in Las Vegas when I was at a conference there. When the dice lands, oh, that's the answer. But a quantum computer doesn't calculate the landing of the dice. It calculates the possibilities of when that dice is still in the rolling and has yet to land, which is 36 times more possibilities than the landing of the dice, which collapses the wave function and say, I know what it is. It's the left brain that wants to comprehend reality. So in my talk, I say it's the right brain, the intuitive mind, the kind of sensing that apprehends reality. It doesn't collapse the wave function. I think, and I'm not saying I know, this is how these beings think in this more abstract way of understanding reality. They don't concretize the world into this is what it is. I know what this is what it is. So if like you're looking at a tree and you're thinking, oh, that's a tree, you completely write it off because you know what trees are. They're boom, boom, boom. But if you don't label it, I'm not saying it's both. It's like the forest, but it's like you don't label it and just look at this being in front of you and don't call it anything. The beingness of that form can be communicated. It's much more a shamanic way. So we need to be whole brain creatures, not left brain where it's linear reality, not right brain where it's all abstract, but we need to walk the line with this great facility that we have to be both left and right brain, rationalists and nonlinearists. Like, Einstein said, the rational mind will get you from A to B, but your non-rational mind will get you everywhere else. So it's linear and nonlinear. It's becoming whole brains. It's not collapsing the wave function into, I know what this is. It's living in the abstract. This is how I think the greater cosmos functions and wants us to rise up to this other understanding of infinite possibility. Does that make sense? Are we?
Yeah, I think so. And I can even, if I may, guys, add something, because, I am a bit of a scientist, even though I'm not a physicist. I'm a biochemist and chemist. But that makes total sense. And when I talk about this, I often talk about us being the primitives and them being the advanced civilization, because that is, if they come here, they are more advanced than we are. Let's not delude ourselves. So when they manifest anything, when you do anything here, it's automatically, we have to assume it's beyond our understanding to understand how and why things are, and we use our senses based on what we know, not what we don't know, right? So it's really hard for rational individuals to look at something and say, like you said, like left brains, like, this is a tree, when they see something that may be generated by an advanced civilization, because their eyes are fooling them. They don't really know. And they may be delving, I would suspect they're licked quantum mechanics, and they're beyond that. And a normal person that does understand quantum mechanics, and it's been around since the 50s here, even prior to that, I think.
Well, the early 1900s. Yeah. I
mean, it's odd. Quantum mechanics, you talk about entanglement and collapsing wave functions, things like that. I mean, you're talking about concepts where, particles are everywhere at once all the time. If you measure the momentum of something, then you can't know its position. Things that are like in our common way of thinking in our daily lives, where we see trees and houses, makes absolutely no rational sense whatsoever. However, for 100 years nearly, our preeminent physicists, they do math using quantum mechanics. So when we see a UFO, when we like an unidentified flying object, for all we know, I'm using an example, you could be seeing the tip of an object that's operating in the fourth dimension, and you're only seeing parts of it in this world. Like, we don't know.
I want to give you an
it's flying. Like, what do we know? We don't really know. They're operating way more advanced.
I want to give you an example, a very personal example of exactly what you're talking about there, Sylvain. And it happened to me, and actually it was a direct personal experience that got me onto this path where I am. We're having this conversation today, and I'm leading a community of thousands and thousands of people from this one incident. And it was my very first week of learning this CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, in a group setting in a secluded forest at Mount Shasta in Northern California. And here's what happened that kind of got me thinking out of the box. Actually, just blew the box wide open to both of your points about the left brain versus the right brain, wave functions collapsing, etc. We were in a clearing, and after having a night of nice contact of seeing lights in the sky and orbs in the trees, most of our group went back, and this was around midnight, went back to their hotels, but about 10 of us still hung around talking about the evening's occurrences. Someone tugged on my arm and pointed off to my right at the edge of where the clearing was and the forest began. And they pointed at something, and I would say it was about 6-8 feet away, not really far away. But here's what was happening. And I had to rub my eyes and go down the checklist of my left brain mind, like, is it this? Is it that? Is it the moon? Is it the shadows? Because what was happening was out of thin air, a sphere was materializing about, I would say, 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and it was low to the ground, a few inches above the ground. It wasn't solid, but it was a sphere. It was perfectly round, and there it was, slowly coming on like a special effect until you could not deny that it was there. And the whole group of us were looking at this, and it floated there for about half an hour. You couldn't see inside. Different people saw different colors. My eyes saw gray is what its surface was, but someone else reported another color. Couldn't see inside, but there it was, not making a sound, no other environmental impact of any kind, heat or whatever. It was just there. And one of the group members suddenly blurted out to the rest of us, "Hey, I just got a telepathic communication from the beings who are inside of this." And keep in mind that what we think later on was a 3-foot sphere may have been part of a very larger vessel that was not yet visible to the 5 senses we have or perceivable by the 5 senses. So this person said, "I've got a message from the beings who are inside of this thing, and they tell me that they're scientists and they're here on Earth to study the human energy system." And I thought to myself in a quirky way, "Oh, great, we're somebody's PhD research thesis," but that's cool. And, they're not hurting anybody, and we're having a hell of an experience right now watching this. So bring it on, right? And that's what he said. And the woman who was standing next to me, who I'd gotten to know and who's a really good psychic, was the object of one of those experiments. And we didn't know it at the time, but she was standing perfectly still, like a board, with her arms out like this, not moving for about half an hour, not making a sound. And I looked at her and I'm going, okay, something's going on with Gloria. That's not her name. But I didn't want to interrupt it because it had something to do with what we were seeing there. And again, keep in mind, this is all out of the realm of what we have been told is possible. The materialization, the telepathy, that's not supposed to be possible. And here's this woman standing there. And I stayed close to her in case she showed any signs of distress. And after half an hour, she kind of got a little wobbly. And I held her by the shoulders and I said, "How many fingers? What's your name? Do you know where you are?" And she said, "I'm okay, just a little bit disoriented." And what had happened is during that half hour, the being inside this sphere, part of a craft, approached her telepathically and said, "May I merge with you and study your energy system?" And to her credit, and again, none of us knew this was happening. This was all mental. All we saw was her standing there, and we're just whispering. She said to the being, "Yeah, you can do that, but there are 3 conditions that I have." So what's really cool is she had the presence of mind not only to say yes, but she's about to negotiate, right? With this being. The rest of us, some of us would probably be hair on fire running towards our cars going, no, what am I doing? But she's negotiating. And she says, the first condition is that I remain aware of my surroundings. I don't want to be knocked out. And the being said, okay. The second condition, she said, was you leave when I tell you to leave. When you're done merging and when I'm done, you go. And the being said, okay. And her third condition, which might sound a little funny, but in all seriousness, she said, I don't want any experimentation with my sexual organs, no probing of that kind, whatever. And the being agreed to that. So during that half hour, the experiment was going on. We didn't know it. And at the point where she became wobbly is the point at which she had told the being time to go. And the object that was there started slowly dematerializing, just doing a slow fade, becoming less distinct into the background until it was gone. And one of the guys there said he had a sunburn because he had gotten a little close. I had even thought during that time, I wonder if I could touch that. And then the better part of me said, you don't know what you're dealing with. You better not do that. But come to find, this is what happened during that half hour. And that's what I just want to present to everybody. That whole experience, again, in a personal way, not only changed my life, but showed me, the left brain scientist, the computer guy, the math guy, that I'm watching something that the physics that I knew about says should not have been happening, should not be possible. And yet 10 adults, all stone sober, took part in this and watched it. So if it can happen once, then what universe of possibilities mean that there isn't a whole lot more that we don't know about? Because it could happen once, it can happen a million times.
Well, it is happening. It's happening around the planet to a lot of people. And it's nice that your group was in its kind of right state of mind to accept this. These beings approach a lot of people and they do go running to their cars, but the ones that have been prepared and opened and have maybe heard these conversations, because we're all in this great cosmic soup. So it's nice that your friend there had clear boundaries, which is great, but we can welcome them in on the level that we want, just because they may be more advanced, possibly energetically or intellectually, doesn't mean they're greater than us. And I think that's a great example of creating boundaries and yet being open. So thank you for that. And I just tell people, be open, but know who you are. These beings are not greater than you. They may be curious about you, like we're curious about them. So this is the beginning of the energetic exchange between humans and the rest of the cosmos. And that's beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's this is great information. Thank you for sharing, Costa. You told me the story before.
I know.
And I love it the second time as well, because it's really, really revealing. It's I feel that you were privileged. Like I'm jealous, really. I honestly am, because I wish I could, but have that kind of experience. But another person that I spoke with last week, he told me, because I expressed that jealousy because he had also something like that to him, and I'm laughing about it because what can I do, right? And he told me what his response was. Like these ETs, these star people, as you call them, they have a plan. And we're talking with all sorts of people, and some of them are contactees, different types of experiences. And you have some of those stone cold, like no contact at all, rational people like I am, and we're all doing our part in this, in this dance, in the awakening dance. And he told me, like, we need you too. He said, because you didn't have that experience, you come from outside of that. You bring credibility to a certain types of people in the discussion. So I said, oh, okay, well, that's a nice way to say that. Like, I'd still like to have that kind of revealing experience, but I felt better because okay, like I'm going through the motions from a different perspective, and that may be helpful. And to close this with a final question that could be of interest. And we're going there anyway. So, for how long have we been contacted this way or interacting with the star people? And do we have any kind of proof that we can show anyone about it? So, what do you guys think about that, Alan?
I have to say, we've been being contacted for a long time. The Egyptians would look to Sirius, the Dogons, Mali, Central Africa, knew there was a Sirius A and Sirius B without any telescopes. The indigenous people talk about their star family coming to visit in most indigenous cultures. I mean, the Aborigines, the Zunis, who I know Clifford Mahudi talks about this, the Lakota Sioux. So this goes back to that left brain Western mechanistic. We've shut that off when the universe has been knocking on our door for a long time, and we say, go away, I'm looking for the universe. It's like we have to wake up to who we've always been. The shamanic ways of understanding are not primitive. They're using another ability that humans have to access reality. The shamans would dance or sing to a plant, and the plant would tell them what their herbal properties were. So we have this incredible facility of the mind, and we lost the password to the software that will get us to talk. So we have to realize we have this facility. These beings are here, and they're back here to wake us up. John Mack, who was, a great leader, he said, these UFOs at our time are here because he says, for the consciously impaired, that's us. To wake us up to who we really are and who we've always been. So it's just these last 300 or 400 years of and we needed this technology to pull the planet together, but now we need to go back. So we needed that focus. We needed to, because we need to be a one world planet and not separate into these division and tribes and warfare, which is the popular pastime of humanity. So we came together, we created technology, we came together, left brain. Now we have to break out of the box that put us together and form the bigger organism. So we have to wake up to who we are and keep the technology. I mean, we could not be having this conversation even 20 years ago, looking at each other. I used to see old comic books with these, I think there was a Superman comic book where instead of talking on the phone, they're actually seeing each other. It's like I said, that would be incredible. And here we are, the future has arrived. So, it's time to wake up to even more gifts of technology. Nothing wrong with technology if we don't let it control our lives, if we control that and use it to bring the world together. But don't forget the technologies of this right brain, this intuitive part of us, which is the biotech that or technology is really not a good word, the potential we have as human beings to make contact with whatever we want. There is no distance, time or distance within the realm of human consciousness. So it's here, Sylvan, if you want it. Right, Costa?
It's here. My wife likes to say that the internet is a precursor to telepathy. And if you look at what goes on the internet, we have a lot of work to do to clean up our thoughts, the way we behave towards each other. But it's a practice ground. It's a practice sandbox for when the organic abilities we have. To your point, Alan, the brain that we don't need metals and all that and waves. We have that telepathy, but we're practicing with the internet now, and it has its purpose.
Right. And we don't need a Neuralink that Elon Musk wants to put in people's brains to make them telepathic. We already have that tool. We just have to activate the software.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Sylvan, this has been a great discussion. I think we hit on a lot of good points that people can think about. And I'm happy to come back in a month or so, or with Costa and more people.
We can certainly do this again. We'd like to do this every 2 months, do a recording and publishing. And we're changing the topics, right? We're kind of like exploring different sides of diplomatic contact with extraterrestrials, each one, and then it'll culminate after about 6 of them. That will in October 6th, 2022. We'll have a major conference, a major reveal of information, international, like a big thing we're organizing. We'll provide details that are later on. But for the meantime, what I would like the people watching this, I would invite you to go check out the links that will be provided at the end of the video and also in the description, hopefully, of the video, because it's going to be posted in multiple channels. So check out ET Let's Talk. Look at the Alliance for ET.org, which is our organization for the embassy, as well as the resources of New Realities as well.
And buy my book, Making Contact.
And get your book with the same name as the forum, Making Contact. So that's the follow-up, and stay tuned for more for another 5 forums like this. With we'll invite some of you again, but I'll also invite other people to participate. So we'll have these exchanges, and we're helping bring humanity into this golden age that we all hope for, an age of slightly less rational thinking and a lot more sensing and sensuality and feeling and cooperation and love. Like
love,
love being the key.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you guys soon.
Bye-bye.